Our daily life is so dull and boring, without adventure, so we dream in novels to compensate for the shortcomings of reality. The real spiritual world cannot solve any problems. It cannot solve any of the problems at hand. It tells you things that you cannot see at all. This thing requires the labor of your mind and soul to obtain, and then it will illuminate your life. Illuminate your life forever. In reality, love can make the soul transcendent. The spiritual world created with such transcendent raw materials can be said to be transcendent, and it is the soul of the soul. So this is really a great subject. There are many love stories, but there are very few that really move us and make us see the divine realm above love, and Wuthering Heights is one. Is Wuthering Heights greater than Jane Eyre? Here I recommend to you a short essay, Jane Eyre and Wuthering Heights, written by the British female writer Virginia Woolf. She made an interesting comparison between the two works. She said that Jane Eyre is a work that says very strongly that I love and I hate. And Wuthering Heights talks about us, the whole human race, and you, the eternal power. She said, there is love in Wuthering Heights, but it is not love between men and women. So, what kind of love is it? We analyze it here to prove her point. Woolf said that Jane Eyre does have very strong emotions, but they are not beyond our ordinary people's experience. It is still a relatively conventional and ready-made experience. And what is Wuthering Heights? Emily looked out and saw a world that was divided and chaotic. So she felt that there was a power in her heart to combine that divided world in one work. The world becomes one again. She has shattered all normal human experiences. Our normal experiences cannot provide her with any reference or a ready-made concept. This is a broken world in her eyes. She wants to reassemble it. Virginia Woolf said in a passage, it is the suggestion of a certain power that lurks beneath the illusions of human nature and elevates these illusions to a sublime realm that makes this work outstanding and vivid among other novels. The two most important points in this passage are, one is the illusion of human nature, and the other is sublimating these illusions to a sublime realm. These are two very important points. Then there is a very interesting passage. She said, Emily seems to be able to tear to pieces all the external signs we rely on to identify people, and then inject such a strong breath of life into these unrecognizable people. If she goes into transparent phantoms, making them transcend reality, then her power is the rarest of all powers. She said that external signs that can be recognized, such as our facial features, limbs, gender, race, and clothing, are generally recognized as common information that provides knowledge. Emily tore them to pieces. What she saw was the illusion of human nature. These are some unrecognizable phantoms, and she injected strong vitality, making these glass-like phantoms active and turned into credible real life, but their essence has surpassed reality. Let's talk about Jane Eyre and its differences again. Jane Eyre can be said to be a well-known work and very influential. When everyone mentions the Bronte sisters, they always mention Jane Eyre. If it weren't for the seriousness of the characters, Jane Eyre would actually be a sweet dream. The love between Jane Eyre and Rochester is so adventurous and full of suspense of a gothic nightmare. There is a madman hidden in the attic. This story can be said to have provided a perfect blueprint for many subsequent popular novelists. Its importance actually lies in the character of Jane Eyre. If Jane Eyre were not so severe, unsightly, constrained by religious doctrines, and lacking in feminine charm, if Jane Eyre was beautiful, sweet, charming, docile, and aggrieved by unfair treatment, then just another Cinderella story. What Woolf said does not exceed the level of experience of most of us. That is, I want a love. And I want love that does not guilt anyone. And that cannot violate my religious principles, my conscience principles, and my equality principles. But Wuthering Heights is different. Its love is not the kind of love in the living room, not in front of the dressing table, nor is it the love in our women's sewing baskets. In short, it is not the love that is in our hands. It is a force that has become a force that confronts us humans and almost defeats us, which is what Woolf calls us, the whole human race, and you, the eternal force. What eternal power refers to is love, and we humans are so fragile yet tenacious. The whole story is about the eternal power, love, fighting against our physical beings. Love is so strong. It can destroy people, destroy your reason, destroy your body, but it will always exist. What Emily creates is such a terrible love, not at all the sweet, fun, playful love we have seen before. There is love in Wuthering Heights, but it is not love between a man and a woman. First of all, situationally speaking, this is a windswept marshland, and the title translates very well, Wuthering Heights. There is only love and hate, and it is either love or hate. There is no compromise or reconciliation. The sentence that names it is, love destroys the body, and at the same time, love turns decay into magic. The body is so powerless and weak in the face of love, and it finally ends in death. But because of immortal love, although your body is destroyed, your soul merges into eternity. I think this is the result of the confrontation between us as a human race and your eternal power. At this point, you no longer feel that love is a relationship between a man and a woman. It is an arbitrary and unreasonable law, and you are in a position to fight against it. The law will definitely defeat you, and it is precisely because of this invincible law that you will gain eternal life. So even if you lose, you will still win. Now, as usual, I will give a rough description of the story. The story takes place between two families. Living in Wuthering Heights is the Earnshaw family, including father, mother, a son named Hindley, and our heroine, the youngest daughter Catherine. Their family had little education and lived in such a wilderness, far away from the influence of civilization. They had no special feelings about religion, were indifferent to politics, and were isolated from society. They were self-contained, with no worries about food and clothing, horses, land, and serfs. The members of this family have a common weird character. What is it? Hot-blooded and capricious. My father once went to Liverpool and saw a street boy on the street. He simply took him home and named him Heathcliff. He is our hero. The father of the family was particularly fond of him out of a strange and unknown affection. As a result, Hindley, the eldest son, was very jealous of Heathcliff and tried every means to retaliate against him, and hatred developed between them. In this way, Heathcliff is in a very strange situation. His master loves him very much, but other people hate him because he has taken away his master's love. He lives in this abnormal state, where pride and inferiority grow together, which is actually very dangerous. But only Catherine had normal and cordial feelings with him. They grew up together and were inseparable. Once, Heathcliff and Hindley had a fierce argument. His father got angry and sent Hindley to study outside, causing him to leave the home. When his father died, Hindley returned to Wuthering Heights with his newlywed wife. Years of hatred finally broke out. Heathcliff was immediately demoted to the position of a servant, and all his original kindness was gone. For miles away from Wuthering Heights, there is Thrushcross Grange, where the Linton family lives, also a father, a mother, and two children, brother Edgar and sister Isabella. This family is relatively normal and leads a respectable middle-class life, a regular religious life. Going to Mass every week, the father holds certain social positions in the community, is a magistrate, and is a gentleman. Education is also step by step. As the age increases, it becomes more and more complete. The atmosphere in the family is stable and peaceful, and the relationship is in a sweet state. By chance, the two families got acquainted. Catherine fell in love with Edgar and got married, leaving Heathcliff, who loved her deeply. The tragedy began. What kind of person is Heathcliff? Give him a name. Lonely soul. His origins are unknown, and he entered Wuthering Heights by accident. He is neither a servant nor a master, and he does not even have an identity. He is a very lonely man and has only one friend, Catherine. Things changed when the Linton family joined the party. Catherine has always been a little girl who doesn't understand her own feelings. She has a strong vanity. She was not aware of it at first, because there were no rules in their family, and the clothes they wore were messy and uneducated. When she injured her foot and lived at Thrushcross Grange for several weeks, she understood what a young lady and a lady should be like. She witnessed the orderly life of the Linton family and was very educated. The most important thing is that she likes Edgar very much. Edgar is an elegant boy with blue eyes and blonde hair. The sweetness and gentleness of his feelings when he was with her made her feel very fresh. So she developed her love with Linton with great enthusiasm. But when Edgar proposed to her and she accepted the proposal, she felt that she had been in big trouble. At a loss, she went to the kitchen to talk to the maid Nellie. At this time, she finally thought of Heathcliff. Heathcliff seems to be always by her side, without having to think about his existence or absence. And now, she begins to analyze the different feelings she has for the two people. How does she analyze it? She said that I loved Edgar very much. I could see his feelings, and my feelings were reflected in him. I could see it very clearly. And what is Heathcliff? He is me. He and I are one. I cannot see his love for me, nor can I see my love for him. At this time, Nellie discovered a very terrible thing. Catherine actually didn't understand marriage at all. She thought marriage was just marrying one person, and Heathcliff would always be with her. She said Heathcliff and I were like rock formations, always there and never leaving. Edgar is opposite her. They are two bodies, and they can clearly see both love and being loved. And what is Heathcliff's feeling for her? He can only see one thing in this world, Catherine. There is only one world for him, and that is Catherine. Nothing makes sense except Catherine. The difference between them is that when Catherine died, he began to hate the world. Some people say that you should be kinder to Catherine's daughter because her eyes are very much like her mother's. He found this theory utterly ridiculous. He said, what should I see her doing? For me, the whole world is Catherine. What does this bastard mean to me? He couldn't accept that kind of emotional transfer at all, but walked down an alley to the end, straight into despair. The love between the two of them is very similar in nature, but there are differences in understanding. In the end, they have gone down to paths. When Catherine expressed her feelings to Nellie, she mentioned the reason why she could not marry Heathcliff because she was a superior person, and Heathcliff was an inferior person and it was inappropriate to marry him. Presentable. Heathcliff heard Catherine's words. He was very angry and desperate, so he left Wuthering Heights that night. After he ran away, Catherine fell ill with a serious and life-threatening disease, which sowed the seeds of disease in her future body and eventually died of the disease. This time she recovered temporarily and married Edgar. Edgar loved her very much and loved her as his own life. When Heathcliff did not appear, the two of them were still in harmony. After all, they also had love and peace. They lived together for several peaceful years. But Heathcliff is back. His return had two effects. One is to rouse Catherine's energy. She does not realize Heathcliff's influence on her marriage, and she even wants him to be friends with Edgar as well. But Edgar couldn't do it. He hated Heathcliff because he saw Heathcliff's influence on Catherine. The second effect of his return was that Isabella fell instantly in love with him. When Catherine knew that Isabella was in love with Heathcliff, her anger made her lose control, and she tried her best to ridicule Isabella. Heathcliff then became extremely cruel. They both took turns humiliating Isabella. But then, Heathcliff began to seduce Isabella, and it was easy to get started. From then on, Isabella's tragic life began, while Catherine became ill, and everything was heading toward madness and death. Why Heathcliff married Isabella? The purpose is very clear. First, he wanted to torture Catherine. If you marry, I will marry too, to rouse her jealousy. Secondly, he wants to torture Edgar, because he knows that their brother and sister have a very good relationship, and torturing his sister is equivalent to torturing Edgar. But all the torture was incomparable to the torture he inflicted on himself. Not seeing Catherine was more torture than death. After Catherine's death, Heathcliff has been eagerly waiting for the day of his death. He cannot commit suicide because Catholicism believes that if he commits suicide, he will not be able to go to heaven. Although he was not a Catholic, he accepted this command from God, and he was determined that they must go to heaven together. What can he do in this anxious waiting? He just hates. If you want to know how much he loves, just look at how much he hates. But if all his hatred is added up, there is still no way to balance it with love. Love is too heavy. What is life like for the second generation? Hindley and his wife gave birth to a son, Hareton. Edgar and Catherine left behind a girl named Katie. Isabella and Heathcliff also gave birth to a boy, named Linton. When all three children grew up, Heathcliff wanted to redirect these three children into the tragedies they had been, the tragedies of Edgar, Catherine and Heathcliff. Before Linton died, Heathcliff forced him to make a will and handed over all the property to his father Heathcliff, so that the two farms were all in Heathcliff's hands. As a result, these three children, who had no property and no ability to be independent, were trapped in a painful and tortuous love triangle under his power. This is the tragedy he designed in the next generation. But what is the ending like? Linton died early. Hareton and Katie slowly got better. Because the power of youth is very strong, the power of love is very strong, and Heathcliff grew old. Love finds young and powerful life, blossoms, and bears fruit, and abandons aging life that has exhausted its vitality. This is the eternal power. It's obviously a strong love story, but it's also a very simple story. Classical writers are not technicalists. They are not trying to find ways to put buttons on you, set up suspense, or create something clever. If they don't do these things, they just rely on their own strength. That is, they write things to extremes and write about love and hate. Extreme. It's not easy to write about things to the extreme. Therefore, you cannot summarize its story. You must read it step by step, in order to understand step by step how the love of a mortal reaches the love of a Superman. The world of Wuthering Heights, like a myth and legend, but also full of realistic laws. Here we talk about a conclusive and most important issue, the relationship between the real world and the world of Wuthering Heights. The world of Wuthering Heights is very strange. At first glance, it looks like a fairy tale or folklore. Its location is so isolated and close that you can believe whatever happens, and its time and age are meaningless. Although it has a very clear time mark, 1801, what happened in the world, England, and Liverpool in 1801 is unknown and meaningless. Therefore, it is also isolated in time. Where are the people inside? It seems like the people at Wuthering Heights are a bunch of lunatics. Their marriage is very strange. Their love is very strange. Their hate is also very strange. And there are also legends of ghosts. Children often come back crying and say, I was herding sheep over there and saw two people, a man and a woman, holding hands, set out to wander the wilderness. This environment and story have a mysterious atmosphere, like a myth. But in this myth there are laws of reality. For example, the concept of family status and marriage, bourgeois vanity, and hatred caused by jealousy are all very real laws. There is also real death. Although there are legends of ghosts, in fact its death does not produce miraculous results. For example, the turning into a butterfly in our folktale Butterfly Lovers does not. People cannot be resurrected after death, and living people cannot talk to dead people. These are all laws of nature. So we see two layers of this world. The first layer is a mysterious story and a magical story, and the second layer is the laws of reality. Then the third level breaks away from the laws of reality and gives birth to a mythical law. Love destroys the body and makes the body transcend into eternity. This law has been proved by all the analysis just now. This magical law is a kind of divine power that is beyond convention and nature, but they also have realistic names. For example, Catherine and Heathcliff. Everyone calls them Mad. Mad is named after our real world. But there is something hidden inside these two madmen, an energy accumulated not from the heat of one person, but from the power of dozens, hundreds, or even all mankind. This extraordinary energy in their hearts makes everything they do so unconventional, making them appear weird, paranoid, and extreme among the crowd, and it is in line with the crazy principles of our real world. But underneath this crazy principle, there is actually an otherworldly reason. Therefore, the relationship between the spiritual world of Wuthering Heights and the real world, as building materials, is a tortuous relationship similar to negation of negation. It is a relationship from myth to reality and then to myth. It uses realistic materials that look like myths. Make another myth. As a special material like love, it can be said to make the best use of it. In this way, what we see in Wuthering Heights is this scene. We first hear a legend, a strange legend in a distant place. And then we walk in and see that its existence and occurrence are reasonable and do not violate the rules. Is actually a reality, and we naturally step into it, unable to help being in its environment. And only then do we realize that its reality has become a fantasy.
Alright, this part of the story ends here.
Want to know what happened next? Let's listen to the breakdown next time.